Welcome to So Guided, a spiritual travel guide for the curious. Join Carissa and Jenny, ordinary people exploring all the extraordinary ways we can connect to the universe. Each week, they investigate another spiritual modality and adventure through all the wild ways we can find high vibes, hope, and ultimately, enlightenment.
Hello and welcome to another episode of So Guided. Last week we talked all about past lives and prepped Carissa for her past life regression. We are now following up with an after today. I drove to her house moments after the session was done, and you're gonna hear even in her voice that this isn't the normal Carissa. She's a little bit chill, a little bit out of it, but she digs into all the details of the session, and a little bit of a future spoiler alert, she uncovers a really dark secret that she shares with us later. But first, let's hear all about this section. You got questions? So do we. Let's do this. All right, so I have driven across town and I don't know any part of the story. And when I walked in the door, she has a funny face. So I can't wait to hear more. So tell me.
All right, so
Go.
I go. Well, feel free to ask questions because if I'm being honest, I just did the past life regression probably a half an hour ago. So I'm still processing it, and I don't know if I have tons to share.
Okay.
So I may need you to kind of pepper
pull
me.
it out.
Because, I don't know, overall I think the experience was fine, interesting, but I'll walk everyone kind of through what it was, and then we can kind of share. I can share why I'm using these very vague terms to describe it. So he takes you through a hypnosis, which is really like a deep meditation.
Right.
So it was just like if you listen to any guided meditation and they tell you to relax certain parts of your body, which is what I did, really, going from the head to toe and then envisioning white light come through. So I was doing that. I had set up myself with Bose headphones on and then did a Zoom through my phone. So I couldn't actually see him, but I could hear him very clearly, and I had noise canceling on. So I was in the zone. I was laying on my bed, so I was able to really get relaxed. And, he went through the relaxation portion. Then he started envisioning a white light coming through my head, being surrounded by white light, which again is very, very typical, any sort of guided meditation.
Right.
So nothing crazy.
Did you feel relaxed as you went through it?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I felt relaxed. Like I said, I feel like I do, and when I do meditate, it's guided.
Yes.
And so I feel like I'm used to a guided meditation. So it was fine. And then went into he took me down steps into a garden. So we counted backwards. Or maybe it was 4, I can't remember, to 10. And we went deeper into 10 steps. And then we, were in a garden. And actually, I did feel like it went fairly quickly, the relaxation part. So the whole time, of course, I'm kind of in my own head, much like meditating, where you're am I even really relaxed yet? And so he took me to this garden, and we were just kind of just envisioning what you see there. He didn't ask what I saw there. It wasn't one of those where sometimes you're sharing or thinking about what you see. It was just kind of sitting there in a comfortable chair. And then I got up from that and went to a tunnel. And his approach and what I was looking for was more of just take me to a past life that impacts or that would help me with this life. As we had talked about before, I'm not trying to cure a specific ailment or any trauma. It's just more of for learning and to just kind of understand what may have happened in a past life that relates to this life. So, I went through this tunnel, and then, he asked me to come through on the other side. And when I came through on the other side, it was I felt like it was like nothing.
You're okay, I'm just laying on my bed.
Yeah, I'm literally laying on my bed. I'm wide awake. I'm okay.
Did you feel awkward because you had nothing to say too?
Yeah, well then I felt and then he was kind of where, where do you see? And I'm honestly, and I even said I don't really see anything. I'm I don't know. And so I don't know if he jumped too quickly, or because we weren't on Zoom and he couldn't see me, was he supposed to be able to read that I wasn't necessarily there, or is that just normal, typical? I'd be so interested to hear more people's experience of this. But it was kind of I'm all right, so I'm not seeing anything. And then, he said to trust your imagination, and that's how the information comes through. It's the only way that any sort of information, your higher self, your conscious, your guides, whoever's communicating this information for you, the only way that they can really get it to you is through your mind, through your imagination. So he said to trust that. Not when I saw nothing, but prior. Okay. So that was kind of the guidance he had given when I went into it. And so I can't remember exactly what happened, but I did kind of feel like I was seeing sand. He's look down at your feet. And I was like, I saw like sand, and I was like,
what did your feet look like?
Couldn't see my feet. So that was one thing. And I asked him about this afterwards. Like, he told me to like look at myself. What was I wearing? I couldn't see anything on myself. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see my feet. And then at that point, I felt like it was like more of like a desert. So I kind of felt like I was in a desert. And then I thought I was in a desert. And he did ask me what I was wearing. And I got a vision of like some sort of like a dress, like a short dress. Not like a dress like we'd wear today, but almost like not even a gown. Almost like of some sort of, I'm having a hard time describing it.
Like a toga?
Yeah, kind of like a toga. Exactly. Kind of like toga. It was like a one piece. And I could see like my hair was dark. So I think I could see my hair was dark. So I was like, oh, my hair is dark. And I felt like my skin was dark. And then he's like, okay, well, did you see people around me? I couldn't see people around me. I couldn't see buildings. He's like, did you like feel like, do you feel like is this a happy place or something? I'm like, I don't know. And then he's like, all right, we're going to move you forward to like the next like significant event in this life. And so he's like, just go forward, whether it's minutes, hours, years, whatever. And then I think I went to a different place. I don't even think I was still there, and I couldn't tell. Then again, it felt all like very like made up and like kind of like ridiculous and very, very cloudy. Like, it wasn't like I was saying it wasn't even like you're dreaming where the images are so clear, even though they're ridiculous. It was like the images were so cloudy to me that they didn't even seem like, it wasn't even like good imagination if I was imagining it. It was almost my subconscious or like my actual conscious, my ego was like blocking, so I didn't even have a good imagination. So even if I was trying to make things up, which I might have been trying, like it was like not even good like quality.
Okay, so I don't want to muddy the waters. We need to continue your story, but we'll talk just a teeny bit about the time I did it. I had the same thing, so I wonder if this is a regression thing. It's through the clouds of memory. That's such a good word that I'd say. Everything that I was imagining, you just clarified for me right now. It was a cloudy recollection of something. So as you said, it's not even a good imagination. No. Like a dream's vivid, right?
It wasn't vivid at all.
And like photo finish, right?
Exactly.
Photo perfect.
Right, this was...
very hazy. Like lots of clouds. Lots of... The veil is there, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going. I'm just going to validate that was how I saw things too.
Okay, right. But at the same time, it felt cloudy and vivid. It felt less real. It wasn't even like, okay, because I like how you put it, like it wasn't so vivid, so maybe we're trying to get through these clouds to like recollect. At the same time, it felt more like fake, like I'm like pathetically trying to come up with something,
I understand.
So I jumped to this place and I was like, maybe I see a horse. And I'm like, do I even see a horse? Like, I don't know. I'm going to say I see a horse. So I was like, saying I see a horse, and I was like playing, like, not playing with the horse. I was like petting, like doing something with the horse. And I was in like all I can picture is like, and I've seen it in that show that everyone watches. What's the show everyone watches?
Yellowstone.
Yeah, in Yellowstone. It's like where they do people around like those.
Oh, I don't know.
The corral or whatever.
Yes.
So I picture like a corral. So I didn't think it was the same as before. Even though
okay, so it felt more Western.
It felt like, it felt, you know what it felt. I even said in the session, I was like, it feels very Little House on the Prairie vibes.
Okay.
But I was with this horse. He's like, are people like helping you with the horse? Like, do you own this horse? I'm like, I don't know if I own the horse. I'm like a worker. I'm just like basically like brushing this horse. Like, are there people there? I'm like, I have no idea. And then he's like, all right, fast forward to another life, and like, or not to another life, to another point in this life. And I did. And then I was like in a bed, and I felt like it was in a bed, again, like in a little house in the prairie, like a house like that.
So it seemed like the same lifetime.
That one did. Yes. Not the same as the desert one to begin with.
Right.
It seemed totally different.
One.
It seemed like it was part of the horse one. But it didn't seem like at all believable.
Stop taking this away.
Right. But no,
you're on a bed.
Right. So I was on the bed, and then it was kind of like, okay, what do you see? And I felt like there were people around me. I said there were people around me. And like maybe like my kids, and I felt like it was like one of those like a death like sequence where I felt like I was sick, but the questions he asked I couldn't answer. Like, how old are you? I couldn't tell how old I was. Okay. He's like, who are the people that are with you? Are they your kids? Are they your husband? I'm like, I don't know. They feel like they're kids. He asked me if I recognized anybody that was there to be in my lifetime now. And I didn't, but I did instantly in my head, like aside, like I heard like the word like Fiona. So I heard, so I'm like, maybe I'm getting information differently than how I'm picturing it. So when I was in there and I was trying to like see it, or I was trying to envision it, I was trying to feel it, I couldn't, but I did get like Fiona. So I was like, I think Fiona, someone's telling me Fiona's there, even though I don't know or feel it, So I got like, she entered my head. So I was like, all right. And when that happened, I did tell myself to be aware of the information come in different ways. Because even because again, I felt like I was fully aware And then, I felt like I went into this, I felt like it was like some sort of I floated. I felt like I kind of had a vision of me floating up. So I felt like it was like a deathbed scenario where I was sick and the people around me were sad.
Did you feel any emotions during this?
Not really. Okay. I felt kind of content. I felt like he actually asked me a question along those lines. And I was like, no, I feel content. And he's like, is there anything? I'm like, I feel sad for the people there. I know they're sad.
Right.
But I feel content. And he's like, was this a good life? And I was like, yes, it was. He's like, is there any learnings or anything you want to take from this life? And there wasn't really anything that was super obvious. I was like, all right. So he took me back to the garden. So we kind of left that life and we went back to the garden. And this is where it got a little more weird. And again, I was like, oh my God.
Weird how? Trippier?
No, I just felt like I had more of the next life was much... Again, it felt totally made up, but it felt a little bit more clear, and my head was going faster than even he was going. So I don't know if that was good or bad.
Oh, that sounds good to me. Okay.
I don't know. So this time the last time I went through a tunnel, this time I went through a screen. And he's like, you see a screen, it's 2 feet in front of you, it's got all these colors or whatever. He's like, you're gonna go through the screen. And before he was even done, I was already envisioning something. And
wait. Pause. That sounds like success already, but keep going.
I don't know.
Nope.
I feel like you can. I don't know. I'm not.
Keep going. Nope.
It's kind of like you with the psychic, where I'm less. I don't know. Maybe I need time to digest it, but it's not. I'm not feeling oh my God, this is such. I have such a.
Got it.
So the screen was there, so I go through the screen, and I'm on a beach, and it's very tropical, and it's beautiful, and again, I can't see myself. I feel like I know I'm a woman, and I don't know he asked me my age. I couldn't tell. And he's the other people, and he's I hear drumming in the back. So again, this felt more of a Moana vibe, and I kept kind of using examples of modern day to explain things, which I also had asked him later. I'm is that normal? Do people do that? And he's yeah. He's people sometimes,
that's your
the way they describe, use reference points. So that was fine. So I felt I was hearing drumming, and he's is that ominous or is it happy? And I'm no, it seems happy, as part of the community. He's are there people with you? And he's and I'm yes, but I can't tell they're family. I don't know. I just I feel there's definitely community around, but you can't tell who they are. He's all right. He's so fast forward to the next portion. This is where I was okay, this is very interesting. So the next thing I had a baby, and I was holding up the baby, and I even said I'm very much in a Lion King.
That's what I'm seeing in my head as you say it.
To the water, and there was drumming in the background. And I do feel I saw a man with me, and he was a stocky guy. And I don't know if it was a husband or what it was, but it felt it was someone who was associated with me. Mm-hmm. And I was holding up this baby, and he's how do you feel? I felt very, very happy. It was a very happy feeling, and so it was great. And so then he's all right. He's go to the next, what's the next important moment of this life? And he did say along the way, when I couldn't answer things, he would say, if you're not seeing it, it's because your guides don't think it's relevant. Okay. Or it don't like it. And he even and he said if you're not seeing it, it's it's not bad to see it, but sometimes stuff's not important or it doesn't make a difference for what they're trying to share with you. So don't get too caught up in what you didn't see.
So basically my romantic things don't work. I want the full picture.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and you want to know I want to recognize Nicholas from another life. And if that's not the point of the story or whatever, it's it doesn't matter. So, or he said it doesn't, he says just not what they need you to see. So this is where it got intense a little bit. The next part of that life was this is very whatever, it's dark. I was putting the baby on a little boat out to sea. The baby had passed away in this lifetime.
Oh no.
I know. It was awful. And I actually, it was very, 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 very dark and very sad. And it was very sad.
Did you feel sad?
I started crying in my regression. I wasn't hyperventilating crying, but there was tears streaming down my face. And I was and even when I was asking him, even when he was asking me questions, I couldn't necessarily fully share. I think the baby is gone. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't I'm it was very hard to tell the story, to him. So I was oh my God. And then it was very, very, and he's okay. He's that's, it's very sad. And he's are there other children? Are there other things? I don't know. I couldn't tell. He's take me to another spot, and he's what are you doing next? And I was just walking on the beach, and he's what are you doing? And I'm just sad. I could see myself just being sad on the water. It wasn't
oh my gosh.
And he's are you alone or anything? And I'm no, I'm just sad. And then I was kind of I feel like I was quiet for a long time, and I was like seeing things, and like honestly I was like having like my mind was kind of moving a mile a minute, and I couldn't necessarily feel like I was having this like inner turmoil, like am I making this up? Am I thinking something? I started thinking more and more things, and so he took me to like he kind of took me out of that to like a place of like lightness, and like he like went to like he's like kind of took me out of like that life. He's like, okay, let's take you out of that life. He's like, I'm gonna take you to like a new spot of like where to see like your guides. We're gonna ask your guides to join us. And so even in that, and like to find out like questions of like why he showed you certain lives, like where there were messages from those certain lives. And, you know, when he asked for my guides, again, I didn't see clearly in my guides. Like, I felt like...
Did you feel a presence at all?
I don't know. Again, I don't know if I did. I kind of said I felt like I saw a white light, but I don't... Even when I was saying it, I wasn't confident. If it was just like... I wasn't like, oh, I definitely feel my guides. I mean, I didn't feel certain, like, full-on energy. I did... Then I'm always, like, I'm so connected to my grandma. I was like, is my grandma... here, and even I did say to him, like, even my grandma may be here, but she's definitely taking like a backstage, like she's not the one trying to share this information. So he asked some questions like what was, and I had written it down, so I actually am like already like forgetting. I'm gonna have to listen to the recording. But he had asked like, you know, what was the message of like the first life and like what they wanted. And I feel like one of the things I like kind of came to me with that was that you can have contentment with simplicity. It was like a very like just like a calming like kind of thing, which again is like, in this world, I'm not like, I don't think I'm like over like needing a bunch of stuff. I don't think I'm like one of those people that like need like things to feel happy, but it's also not a message I feel like I often need is that simplicity. Like I don't think I need, so I thought it was like, that felt less made up because that's not something that would come to me.
No,
as like a message, you know? Right. And then, you know, he asked about like a message from like the second life, and it was very much about like, you know, you have to be able to like, I don't know, like you don't want grief to like to overtake you. It was like, I feel like that was like a very much a message of that. And you have to like kind of like continue to live was one of the messaging from that life, which I got. And then, you know, he asked like, what's like a soul purpose? And I feel like I've talked a lot to myself, or I've talked to you. We're always trying to figure out our life's purpose and our soul purpose and all the things we do. That's something that we talk about. Like, you know, what are we trying to accomplish in this life? Or what do we think we need to work on in the books we read? Like that comes up a lot. So I've like thought about that for myself often. And the same words that I've thought about came to me. Okay. So I felt like control, surrender, like believing, like trying to just like trust in the universe. Like those are things that, again, I think are all lessons I need to learn in this life. And so that came to me. And so again, even if it's accurate, it felt, I'm not gonna say it didn't. It did feel less real because I felt like it was myself just telling myself what I always tell myself. Yeah. So like that was a little bit like, and again, maybe I'm correct and that really is what I need to work on, but it just felt like it was in my own voice. It was the way I say it. It was what I tell myself. So it just felt like it was like my ego coming in and reminding myself what I've said. So that felt a little bit less. And then, you know, he did ask like the same thing, like, is there a way to like see your guides? Like, how can I ask help from my guides? And like, there was like, you know, the answers where it's like, you know, the answers came quick, but again, they're answers I would think like, you know, meditate, walk, pray.
Wait, these are answers from your guides?
In theory. Like, how do I, that's what I'm saying, in theory. There are questions like of how do you access your guide more often? And so like the words came super quick, but again, I don't know if those are, because I feel like those would be the right answers anyway. And so that's where I was having a little bit of a challenge trying to figure out what's me again and what's what. And so, you know, he also asked if there were any like soul contracts I had made prior to coming to this life. And I felt very blocked by that question. And I wanted it. And then I was getting some sort of like messaging like around my mom, but unclear what it was. And like maybe I had just, my mom, you know, we've talked about my mom before, but she's a very specific type of mom, like all moms are. I was getting like a feeling of like I had like, in order for my life to learn, I had needed that type of mother who was very like overprotective. You know, she's an overprotective mom. Like, you know, maybe I needed that because, you know, I worry a lot, and if I'm trying to let go of control and trust, like she wasn't helping that. She was actually, she wasn't helping me feel more free, and I don't think I wanted that. I think I wanted to be able to do it on my own in a way. It was kind of like what I was getting in like very brief tidbits of information. So I thought it was a good question. I wish I'd got a more clear answer because I liked that one.
Yes. That would be helpful usage in this life.
He asked me more of like, here's the other one. He asked me who else was like a soul contract with, like, or not soul, I'm sorry, who else was in my soul group? Like if I like who now in my soul group. But then I felt like that was like a easy answer too. I feel like my kids, my husband, my mom, my best friend, like you know what I'm saying? Like that's who I, like my grandma, like they were the people that like automatically came to mind, which I did think of you even in my thing. I was like, oh, Jenny's even coming up in my past life regression. But again, it was like the answers I've thought of them before. And so I felt like I already knew them. So they could be correct, but they didn't feel as authentic.
Right. It's almost if like a random name from like someone from school.
Yeah, exactly. If someone random who I hadn't thought about in a while popped in my head, it would have been a little bit more like, oh my God, this person, you're right, he did have a huge impact in my life. I forgot about it. But none of those, all the same, all the normal. Yeah, and then that was like basically the questions he asked at the end. And then it was, he brought me back. And I do feel like I was in a state of relaxation because when I came back, he did all the things that you hear about in hypnosis of like, you count forward, you start feeling your body, and then you come up very alert and awake. And I did go from a very relaxed state to then much more awake. And and I had him like he's like a very renowned person. So and he was like, he was very like helpful. And at the end, I asked him that I was like, hey, like, I felt it was kind of weird that I wasn't able to like see myself as much or know the age of myself. I'm like, is that like, what do you see? And he said, honestly, he's like only about 50% of the time. He's like, it's like hit or miss. He's like,
why don't they say that in advance?
I don't know.
That would make you feel better.
I know. He's like 50% of people get such clear indication of what they look like and what age they were. And he's like 50% of people don't. He's like, and that's again when he reiterated that the guides, if they don't see it as something that's necessary, or like for your own personal growth, they don't necessarily share it. And then I asked him the question I had asked you. I posed it to him because I had him for a minute. And I was like, I guess I'm having a hard time understanding like some of the stuff I saw. Like I think it, obviously I'm going to have time to reflect on that. Or like, how does that help me? Like, you're asking, like, I was shown this for a reason to help in this modern day. But how does just seeing something like that help me now? And he was like, you may have new information that comes to you. He's like, your dreams may be more vivid. You maybe get more, it may have unlocked something. Then more like thoughts will come your way. He's like, which is like, you should like trust those. And then he said also like, sometimes it's just the subconscious, like acknowledging it. And like it, within your subconscious, like being able to unlock it. He's like, it can be slow and steady, very slow little things.
Slow awakening.
Slow awakening you don't even realize. And he actually used the example of when people get hypnotized to quit smoking.
Right.
He's like, when you get hypnotized to quit smoking, when you're done the hypnosis, you don't necessarily leave and like, I'm never having a cigarette again. But he's like, and you don't even necessarily feel like anything's different or you change. He's like, but slowly, he's like, you realize that you've gone longer without a cigarette or your cravings aren't as intense.
Okay, that's a good way.
And he's like, so like, you don't even really know what happened or what changed, but like, it's easier to like quit. And just like, I feel like with the hypnosis of the past lives, I'm not like walking out being like, oh, now I know all this about my life, or I'm cured, or I'm aware now, or I have this like different understanding of my current life. But I think maybe having seen what I saw, I can now apply it to different parts, or maybe subconsciously I'll apply it to different parts of my life, and that will help me.
Well, I also think, so one negative to me coming over right away, you haven't even had time to process it. You're making a cup of coffee to wake yourself up from hypnosis.
I know, right?
And you haven't let it like sink in. And I think you need time to resonate what sticks and what falls through the cracks. So like a dream that sticks in your head, the fuzzy details fall away and what's true remains from a dream.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm kind of curious as the week goes on, what resonates with you.
Right.
As someone on the outside hearing your story, well, first, to back up your tropical story, remember you gave me a book a year ago, the Hawaii book about Ho'oponopono,
right?
Yeah. And within a week of you giving it to me, I misplaced it.
Right.
And you so kindly haven't been rude, but I've lost the book almost a year ago to the day, right?
Right.
Guess what I found this morning?
No! Are you serious?
The Hawaii book about Hawaiian rituals and releasing forgiveness.
Wow.
So I have goosebumps on that. Because I
actually rebought the book.
No, you didn't.
Like 6 months ago, because I knew I didn't think I was ever going to get it.
Yeah. All right, but that's fine. No, that's not a coincidence. That's not a coincidence because I've searched my house and I just found it. And
wow, that's how weird is that? Like, that is interesting.
That is crazy. And we both have a connection, and we don't know if Hawaii's right or not. But for whatever reason, we both have a tropical connection.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I can't move past the fact that your major trauma of your adulthood at the moment is loss, and it relates to baby.
I agree. But see, that's where I start getting...
So that when it feels like you made it. So first of all, you haven't visited anywhere tropical. You don't necessarily have a desire or expressed a vacation. I'm just playing devil's advocate of your brain. Why on earth are you playing out a scene somewhere tropical, which has never been something that you've talked about? Where does this, like, the drum beat in the background, a stocky man, the baby with a happy celebration, which isn't something that relates to your life whatsoever. And quite frankly, if you wanted to make up a story, why would you go to something so dark as a baby on a boat?
I know.
I just feel as though it's so specific. As much as you feel it was hazy and generic, the details that you're giving me, and anyone listening might actually say, when you hear your recording of yourself, you're more specific than you think you are.
Yeah.
I think you need time to process, but this feels so specific to me.
Well, it does. But see, and that's, again, my own devil's advocate. I'm like, of course I have, like, not of course, but, like, I have such baby stuff in this life that I'm, like, wondering, I'm like, oh, is that why I'm thinking of a baby? So I don't know if it's, like, again, rooting it, but then again, why wouldn't it just, you have to just believe, I guess.
So also, I would argue that there's no doubt on your soul purpose journey, it relates to the baby thing.
Right.
And your actual awakening and enlightenment is because of this.
Right.
So this story doesn't feel, it just feels, and then let it be supported by my finding the book this morning.
Right, that's so amazing. That's actually a really...
Isn't the book, it's title,
about forgiveness. Yeah,
it translates to forgiveness in Hawaiian, where I love you, I forgive you, self.
Like, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. In whatever order. It's like that's interesting. Wow, that's really good.
So that's kind of wild.
That's very wild.
When you put those two together. And the minute I found it, I'm like, oh, snap, this is coming up today.
So maybe what we need to do for everybody, and I think we could easily do this.
Yes.
I think we can do a part 3 to this.
I think, and if you guys don't mind.
If you don't mind, well, I will process. And then what you can do, because you did it a year ago.
I did it a year ago.
You've had time to process, and you've gone up and down. So maybe what we'll do is next time, you share your story, and I'll have processed, and I'll tell you what has come in, like, the 48 hours or whatever, if we do at the end of the week, in the, like, couple of days since we did this.
I like that. I really do. I really think you need time to filter it out. Like, if you had a strainer, what sifts through the cracks and what sticks.
Right.
And I want to know what's sticky, because to me that's something. And I'm saying this from experience without getting into my story. What I would say is, what's really funny is you and I had very similar reactions. I didn't come out being like, yes, I have this great, amazing story. It was very cloudy, as you described. I at times felt I was making it up, but it was so obscure. I did journal directly afterwards before I ever spoke to anyone and wrote all the weird things I thought I was making up that I didn't even say out loud to the woman.
Well, I did that too.
Oh, good.
I did do that
too. And let's get into that list. I want to circle back.
Because I agree with you also in that, like, so when he was asking questions, there were some things that were so just too much to share out loud. Because it's not just like you're in, like, a safe space, this person. Like, there are some things that I knew I'd remember it.
Yes.
So I didn't need to, like, share it out loud. It was for me. And so I'm going to dig into that, see where the dreams take me, and then we will circle back for
Okay, I told you, she was chill, right? Well, after this session, after we hit stop, Carissa shared a major secret with me that she didn't even share with the hypnosis therapist or you guys or me. And once she shared it, I knew we had to circle back. So stay tuned. In a couple weeks, we're coming back with not only the secret of something that really relates to our life today, but I'll also share with you my very weirdo session of my own past life hypnosis. Thanks for listening.